Thank you for joining Leadership Rediscovered, a podcast devoted to all things leadership. I'm Laura Siebold, founder and president of Shine Consulting, and each week I interview different leaders from different industries and different walks of life to talk about their unique definition of leadership. And today I am thrilled to talk to someone I've been wanting to talk to a really long time, and that is Tracy Miller, who is the president of the Mid Atlantic Aerospace Complex, which is an organization that markets and promotes the aerospace industry in North Central West Virginia. How'd I do?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
This is so exciting. And we know so many of the same people.
I
so
know.
It's about time.
But it's shocking that we didn't know each other up until today.
It as we said earlier, it makes West Virginia feel bigger when there are
does.
still those cool people out there to
Yes,
meet.
Exactly. All right. So I am so fascinated. I mean, you, first of all, I'm not going to read your bio, but like you are a big deal and you've had a lot of awards and recognition. So I just want to call a few out that I noticed. I know you've been a West Virginia Wonder Woman, which I think is really cool. And I want to talk about women in aviation. But you were appointed by Governor Jim Justice as the first woman to serve on the former West Virginia Aeronautics Commission. Yes.
Yes.
And you have done so much work with the North Central Airport Authority and Benedum Airport Authority that you have taken the economic impact of the aerospace industry from $395 million in 2009 to over $1 billion, which is amazing. So I am so excited to talk to you. And when I was doing my little research on you, I was looking at your background and I was like, she does not look like she has an aerospace degree or, so I want to know how this all even came to be because you've had amazing career success, but I want to just start off by hearing what is your story and how did you get to this point of creating billions of dollars of economic impact? Because that's really cool.
I love it that you know those numbers because you've got to have that data because you've got to have a point of measuring.
Yes.
And we do economic impact studies every 5 years. But first of all, it's a great team. We have an amazing team. One person doesn't get anything done in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And we have a great team that meets weekly. We've been meeting weekly for 7 years. But obviously this impact has been happening over a period longer than that. But my background was being an educator. I'm a fourth generation educator and I'm fourth generation college educated by the women in my family, which is such a unique statistic
because you're
for
from
West Virginia,
right?
So I have got some really powerhouse women before me, which make me so proud.
Yeah.
But at one point in my career, I got into sales for a little while, and then a job came open for the Governor's Office of Economic Development in Charleston, which is now, used to be called the West Virginia Development Office. Now it's called the West Virginia Department of Economic Development. Okay. But I interviewed, and my first role there after I got hired was working in the workforce department, which was perfect to transition from being an educator to really the workforce component of industry is so important. And then I became an existing industry rep. So you have the people that are bringing in new business to West Virginia. Yes. So I remember the very first big announcement ever, maybe a month after I got hired, was when the Toyota plant came. Yes. And then when Procter & Gamble announced a couple of years ago. So there's a team of reps that are basically on the front line selling West Virginia. Okay. So when a corporation wants to put a new location somewhere in the world, and then there's a team that are called existing industry reps. And I feel like that's more of a nurturing role. You really get to know the plant manager. You get to know the climate of the facility. Okay. How's the workforce? How's your workers' comp? How's your taxation? There were lots of issues decades ago that thankfully have been ironed out, that it's a much better business climate in West Virginia today. But I really enjoyed that. And so as an existing industry rep, I traveled from Charleston, which is where I grew up, the capital city, which is where the Department of Economic Development is. And I had 11 counties. And one of my counties was the aerospace industry sector in Harrison County. Wow. So even though I didn't live in Harrison at the time, I got to know all of the industry. My family was second generation chemical industry.
Oh, okay.
When Union Carbide was big in Charleston. Yep. So every time I would call on the aerospace industry, I would always relate it to how foundationally important these jobs were, just like the chemical industry.
Yeah.
And the strange thing about where we're located at the North Central West Virginia Airport is it's not on I-79. And it's not like a mall. It's not like you're going to Pratt Whitney for a happenstance or Aurora Flight Sciences. So unless your mom or dad or aunt or uncle work there, you really, it's kind of just its own little niche.
Its own little world.
And so kind of, if you've ever read the book, Horton Hears a Who, we are here, getting the word out to kids that even live 15, 20 minutes away, that whether you want to design the plane, build the plane, or fly the plane, you never have to leave West Virginia. All the training opportunities are here. All the job opportunities are here. And so, and it's also a target industry of the state of West Virginia. So when you look at beating the drum of saying aerospace, starting, back in the late 90s, early 2000s until now, it really takes a village to have that commercial every day, which is basically why right now I have on my aviation rockstar t-shirt.
Andrew, are you wearing?
I'm wearing
an airplane necklace
and airplane earrings.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
So because it doesn't matter, I may run into a kid today. I may run into a parent. You never know who needs to hear the story that aviation is alive and well and growing in almost heaven, West Virginia.
Yeah, which again, I mean, when you think about other industries like the tech industry, you think of Silicon Valley, right? And so I would assume when you think of the aerospace industry, your goal is that people would think of West Virginia and not somewhere else.
You are exactly right. And I think we are there more today than we've ever been. There are cohesive investments going on in the Northern Panhandle, the Eastern Panhandle, Southwestern West Virginia. We're all talking. We are all working together closer than we ever have. And there's more training now because when you really think about whether you are the person designing the plane, flying the plane, or doing what the $1 billion economic impact at our airport is mostly called MRO, which is maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So there's not really airplanes being manufactured there, but MHIRJ is doing the MRO to airplanes. There's no engines being manufactured, but Pratt Whitney is doing the maintenance, repair, and overhaul to engines. So you don't just have to have training, you have to have training that's certified by the Federal Aviation Administration. So it's really important that West Virginia is making these investments in the very important FAA certified workforce opportunities. So when kids look up at the sky and say, I love an airplane, I love this, I want to do this, we can say no matter where you live in West Virginia, we're really behind you to give you these pathways to do what you want to do with aviation.
Yeah, and it's a high demand industry. I mean, that we talked before we started recording that I have a client in this industry. And so I know this one better than some of the other industries out there. And there's a pilot shortage, there's an aircraft mechanic shortage, there's all kinds of shortages going on. And so if you think about, I have a 14-year-old, so he's at that age where you're starting to think about, okay, what's next? Am I going to college? Am I not going to college? Do I want to do a trade school or something else? And I don't know that kids even realize this is a whole industry and in and of itself that you can go to trade school for. And if you want to be an aircraft mechanic, as an example, and a lot of career opportunity, just like how nurses are so critical right now to healthcare, aircraft mechanics, my goodness.
And the pilots. And think about it. It's infinite. We need lawyers, accountants. So no matter what you want to be, if somehow your heart is still drawn to aviation, anything you need. But one of the things that you and I also spoke of is there is a pilot shortage. There is a mechanic shortage. But statistically, what there really is a shortage of women in those jobs. And so back in the FAA Reauthorization Act in 2018, it was implemented that there was supposed to be something created called a Women in Aviation Advisory Board. And it actually was not started until under Secretary Elaine Chao in 2020. And 30 women were appointed from across the United States. And I can say in this leadership podcast that I'm on, that little old Tracy Miller, knowing how powerful our senators are, I thought, we have a voice too, and I'm going to see if I can get appointed to this board.
That's
and so I was one of the 30 women, and we worked for 2 years, and we put together a report with basically the mission on how do you get more girls, women, females into aviation. And they wanted to make sure that we included airline, nonprofit, and private industry so that we had a group basically covering every dynamic sector of aviation and aerospace to tell our stories and come together to say, what do we need to do? And I think if you look at almost every other industry sector going back over 60 years, women have appreciably entered the workforce.
Yes.
Except aviation.
So why is there, have they been able to pinpoint why that's not been as much of a draw for women?
It is so STEM related. And if you look at kids when they are entering kindergarten and they're all excited about math and science, and then they go on to, there comes a moment where young girls drop off. And, you know, because I'm a fourth generation educator, I'm also a woman who has the nerve, even if I'm shaking inside, to pull my seat up to the table at times. There are still times where, you know, girls are overlooked in the classroom. If, you know, a young boy is asking more questions and is more assertive, and a girl who may have equal smarts, if not more, and have the heart to be whatever she wants to be in aviation, if it is not her natural personality to be pushy, if she's not a natural trailblazer, girls start dropping off so quickly in, you know, elementary and middle school, and it continues to get worse and worse and worse.
Wow.
And so by the time you've entered those majors in college, you have less women entering those majors. And then, you know, one of my favorite words that you mentioned as you and I spoke earlier is culture. And I think you can have mandates in an organization. You can say on your website that you have equal hiring requirements, and you can put on paper whatever you want to say. But if you don't have a leadership that is actually walking the walk and talking the talk and saying, I'm looking at my team and all I'm seeing are white men, then your words
this isn't me
aren't changing and moving the needle.
And that's important. So when you think about, because I haven't shared this with you, but my background is in recruitment and talent acquisition because I worked in HR. So I've done other parts of HR, but the more relevant piece of that is the talent acquisition recruitment piece. And what's challenging for people as they're even going through job interviews, even if they get to that point, which is hard to get to that point, but even if you get to that point, if I'm a candidate for a job and I walk into a building and I don't see anyone that looks like me, however you want to define that, but I don't see anyone that looks like me or acts like me from a personality perspective, then I am already telling myself, ooh, this might not be the place for me. And they are also trying to figure out, everyone's trying to figure out culture, whatever gender you are. But more specific to women in aviation, I mean, again, I have some clients that have a very, I would say almost even split in terms of their gender in the workplace. And then I have some other clients where it is maybe 90, 95%, 98% male. And here I come to do training and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're probably like, who's this lady? You know, where it makes me uncomfortable a little bit because I'm like, I don't fit in with these guys. And they have all been wonderful. And I think we acknowledge that each of us are bringing something to the conversation that's different. But again, these aren't jobs that I'm applying for to work for full time. I have a very specific role where I'm coming in from more of a consultative perspective, providing a service and then exiting. And I do think about what would it be like to work in an organization or an industry where I'm very much a minority. Again, however you want to define it. I mean, it can be very challenging.
And being in this role with 30 powerhouse women, and if you ever get the opportunity to look at the Women in Aviation Advisory Board report, you look at some of the women that I served with, and little old Tracy Miller from wild, wonderful West Virginia. It was all inspiring. But I think a couple of things really stood out to me is not everybody wants to be a trailblazer. Not everybody.
That's true. And that's okay.
And I never, ever, ever had really thought about that. And there were some women that were very strong about saying that if you don't have the nerve to blaze the trail like we did, and I just think that's going to continue to leave out people that just want to be authentically themselves and not have to think, why is it so hard to be a pilot, or why is it so hard to feel like I fit in? I just want to be me. I don't want to become something I'm not.
Exactly.
So that was a point that stood out for me. And I think another point, when you walk into a situation and no one looks like you, and this is just, I don't want to say a thought, but it's important, is even look at it as a safety issue. If I'm a minority in an aviation industry, and I obviously don't feel like I belong. I don't feel included. I probably don't have a restroom for me. I probably don't have a uniform that's made for me. The things that I found out about this industry sector in this year of the 2020s, at the time we were doing the report, I had no idea how, if you build cockpits and uniforms for, captains of airplanes that have been men, and you have never even thought to make it so that it's equal. So look at safety. Am I going to feel comfortable reporting things to someone that is going to say whatever it is they may say of me? So the more you have people that represent society, the more you're going to have the tough conversations to keep whatever product it is that you have on the market as safe, and all of the boxes that you want to check. It makes people feel empowered to speak.
Absolutely. I can't believe I never thought about the uniform thing, but I'm all about the fashion, so I'm shocked. But it makes total sense to me, and it's just another detractor for why someone might not go into a field or just not feel welcomed or included. And I like how you said a representative of society. And you're right, because think about your customers. If it's whatever company you're operating, if it's a for-profit, or even if it's a non-for-profit service organization, you have customers. And so you want what's on the inside of the building to represent and match who your customers are too, so that when your customers are making decisions and choices, they see people like them as well, and not just like, if this doesn't feel right to me, or this feels so different from me, I feel like I don't belong even as a customer.
Aerospace is all over the world. So all of the companies, which is, I think, even more amazing when you look at the 4 big world renown that are the 4 biggies we have, and then our other smaller ancillary companies are really making as big of an economic impact. But they have locations all around the world. So, it's not just Americans. I mean, you're servicing customers and people from everywhere. But I think, it's, if I've been doing this for this long, and we started doing economic impact studies in 2009, and you're measuring the numbers, and you're looking at our enrollments in our schools, and we really had not had a great foundational pathway from K-12. The amount of leadership that has got K-12 pathways. I am on the phone with our State Department of Education all the time, thanking them for everything they're doing, asking questions, because even if a school system doesn't have the funding to put in an aerospace curriculum and hire a full-time teacher. There are so many ways we can get creative to expose the kids.
Well, and it's the awareness piece,
It's the awareness.
Like, it's just the what's possible. I have said it probably 10 or 15 times on this podcast, and I think I just said it on the last one, but I'm going to say it again because my friend Greg Clutter, who was also on this podcast, said one time, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I had never heard that saying
Isn't
before.
it the best?
Yes, and it totally makes sense. And if you think about just raising the awareness or exposure of what's possible to kids, I mean, there are so many things. Like my son did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I remember when he was younger taking the classes, I think about 50% of that class was girls. And I was like, well, how cool is that? That was never even on my radar as a thing I could do when I was a little girl. There were so many things. And I have amazingly supportive parents that were, whatever you want to do, the sky's the limit. I mean, they were very supportive, but never was it like, I mean, my brothers played baseball, my sister played softball. And so it was just like, okay, I'm going to do that too, which I loved. But at the same time, I mean, it was never even on my radar of you can be a pilot, you can be, you know, so many things out there that I never even knew was possible. So even if you couldn't, you may not have a assigned or dedicated curriculum or teacher, but even if you can just raise the awareness of what's possible, that's huge.
And so taking that, so no matter how much we grown-ups get excited about having programs in the schools, it's still school to kids. So there are so many other things going on that there's a gentleman at my airport that got exposed to remote control aircraft when he was very young. And so he is on his third year of doing something called the Carl Hopkins Aviation Expo. And it always happens right before school starts. It's all day Friday and all day Saturday in August. And he invites kids and families statewide and has remote control aircraft, simulators, flyovers. Cool. And he said, I simply want this to be a fun day so that kids can just come and have fun. And then we now have 3 formal chapters of Women in Aviation, which is a organization that has chapters all over the world.
Very cool.
But Women in Aviation is the head and sponsor of something called Girls in Aviation Day. And Girls in Aviation Day is always like the fourth Saturday in September. And we are now going to be doing our 3rd Girls in Aviation Day in North Central. Down in Charleston, they did a Girls in Aviation Day last year. So even having those events and the way we did it is, we know it's so hard to get babysitters. So we said, we want it to be called Girls in Aviation Day, but we want all parents, bring your kids, bring your family, just come. And we have 22 organizations doing fun activities. And me being the ex-school teacher, I said, this isn't a trade show. So even if you're a company, you can't come and give a kid a brochure. You've got to be goofy and fun and engaging.
You better make it fun.
This is a day to get them excited and to see the grandparents and the parents with these kids and the amount of kids that have aviation clothing and oh my gosh, this one girl had on a dress and her whole print was aviation. And I just, the love of what we're creating with this day. And then everybody says, are you doing it again next year? So it's just,
that's cool.
One moment at a time, doing the same. You just got to say the same thing day after day.
And we talked about culture. I mean, it takes a long time to change culture. And this is a type of culture that you're trying to change as well. So it doesn't happen overnight. But I mean, to your point, you keep doing these things, because I was sitting here thinking about when we were talking about, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. I've met a lot of people. I didn't fly on an airplane until I was 18. The first time I flew, I was 18. Now, I grew up in Ohio, but we just couldn't afford, our family couldn't afford to fly on vacation, so we drove. But I have come across a lot of people here in West Virginia that have never flown. And I was sitting here thinking, is part of this industry maybe a little bit mysterious to children, because maybe they've never been on an airplane before either and don't really know much about it. And so when you do things like the simulators and when you do things like the Girls in Aviation event, you are, even though, I mean, it would be amazing to take them up, but that's expensive. But like a little ride and come back. I mean, this isn't a pony ride. It would be a lot more of a cost to do something like that. But just you're getting as close as you can, it sounds like, short of taking them up in an airplane, to get to just go in one or be around one or have a simulated experience of one, so that they, even if they've never been on an airplane before, I was
thinking that exact thing is a lot of kids that do hear about our FAA certified program in our community college. Yeah. So Pierpont was the first flagship community college, and it's called a Part 147 FAA certified airframe and power plant. So whenever you and I and anyone we love are flying, whether it's for business or personal, you hope that those mechanics that assembled that plane and that fixed that plane have been to a school as reputable as these schools that aren't just have the accreditations of higher ed and community college, but they've also got the Federal Aviation Administration certification. That if a kid, by some chance, has heard about this program and has that drive to enter, have they ever really left their county? Have they ever flown? So you may have kids that are working on airplanes and fixing airplanes that still haven't flown yet. And we were just talking about that last night at my business dinner, because I do think I love my Appalachian culture and I love my mountains. And I think our mountains are where we hang with our people and we hang in our communities and we hang in our school systems. And not every West Virginia kid has gotten out and been in an airplane. So I think the more and anyone that knows me, because I am very outgoing, they lovingly know that I am a champion and cheerleader for them. So I'm not hiring at the Mid Atlantic Aerospace Complex.
Right.
I want to grow this $1 billion economic impact. I want to grow this sector. So I'm in touch with all of them all the time. Every time there's a high school career fair, a college career fair, I email all of them individually, especially if any of them are having workforce hiring needs, which, with the pilot shortage and the mechanic shortage. And so I'm always just kind of their pain in the you-know-what of just saying, hey, there's a career fair. You got to send somebody. You got to go.
That's huge.
And I'm in touch with all the superintendents, all the career and tech ed people. So I know everyone lovingly. And I always, when they joke and go, got another email from Tracy, I go, but it's with a halo.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
I mean, I was sitting here thinking there's probably people listening to this in other industries that are like, well, I wish I had a Tracy that was sending me emails and saying, hey, trying to help grow your business, because that's huge.
Well, I want to say that last week, Pierpont had a scholarship award ceremony. So even though West Virginia now has the last dollar in free community college, which is a big deal.
Can you talk about that real
West
quick?
Virginia invests. So this was passed by our legislature a couple of years ago. Okay. So we have the Promise Scholarship, which can be awarded to students going – it actually can be awarded to students going to 2-year and 4-year. But the West Virginia Invests is basically free community college last dollar in for students. So you can get your entire FAA Part 147. We were talking about nurses. So there are many programs available through our community and technical college system. But Tracy wears the aviation hat.
Yeah.
So in having that opportunity for students, you think about what that does to change a kid's life, to be able to have that support from the state of West Virginia that your education is paid for. So we're at this ceremony where 22 scholarships are awarded. And at the end of the ceremony, these programs, if you think about it, are very expensive because you're teaching kids how to work on engines and how to work on airplanes. So there have to be either airplanes purchased through a community and technical college program, or there have to be donated, or engines donated, or parts donated. And you have to have safety glasses and all of the tools that are so important.
Well, and the technology, too.
And all the technology, which is such a big deal. And thank you for saying that, because it is, everything is, the manuals they used to have to read for every aircraft. Digital now, technology. So at the end, Dr. Brad Gilbert, who's been at the facility for 30 years, that facility's like a family. I love dearly working with all of them. They said, we want to give 2 awards away to industry. And one of them was to the champion that does the Carl Hopkins Aviation Expo, and Ed has just been so good to donate equipment and support the school. And when they started talking about the next one, I feel like I'm going to get teary now. They gave me an award.
Oh my gosh, Tracy!
Just for being, and I completely didn't see it coming because I feel like when you work alone, and I'm out there every day just being the Energizer Buddy, happily driving people crazy, having people joke and tell me I drive them crazy, and I never stop, and I'm obviously very type A and self-motivated. I was shocked.
Aww.
And it was not the biggest, it wasn't like, it was the award from the people at the school to me, how saying, Tracy, we see you and we know you're a cheerleader for us. I think it's I have it in my bag because it's my favorite thing that I have ever gotten, because it's like spoke to my heart. That reminded me that what I am doing does matter.
Yes. I love that you said that. Well, congratulations.
I know.
That's a big deal.
I was just saying it because you were talking about, you know, I am a cheerleader and champion, and I never, you don't know if you're out there sometimes just,
well, it's hard to hear the who. Yeah, we are here. We are here.
Yes.
But I get it, especially when you're on your own, because you're just kind of like, I'm only one person. I'm only one person. And I feel like we were having a similar conversation before the recording started. But I think a lot of times people don't identify themselves as a leader because maybe they don't have direct reports or a big team, or they're not a CEO or a business owner or whatever. But when you're out in the world, influencing and impacting, in my mind, anyone and everyone can be a leader, because we all have the ability to have an impact and influence on somebody else or something else. So you're a leader in an entire industry. Just because you don't have people reporting to you doesn't mean you're not a leader. And when you are planting these seeds and you're beating this drum over and over and over, day after day and year after year, suddenly you get to start to reap the harvest, which is so exciting.
Part of it are those economic impact reports, because you're out doing what you're doing every day and doing these economic impact reports, which the Benham Airport Authority does. And they are truly the umbrella under which the Mid Atlantic Aerospace Complex and the airport, we have such a great vision for, we're building a new terminal, and the new terminal is going to be on Interstate 79.
Which is
so
cool.
When we've talked about like vision and actually seeing it and saying, and I don't know if you've driven by, but I drove by it yesterday. It's so beautiful. And looking at the campus of all of these employers. So as we've looked at, because right now, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and the terminal are right beside of each other. And so as MHIRJ has invested over $20 million, way over $20 million, and built over 100,000 square feet of 2 brand new hangars, which is huge. Somebody was going to have to say we can't grow. Either we were going to have to stay in this very old terminal and look at Mitsubishi and say, sorry, you can't keep investing in West Virginia and creating jobs.
Somewhere else.
So moving the new terminal is actually a catalyst. So Mitsubishi now has a campus to continue to grow. Pratt Whitney has a campus to continue to grow. Aurora Flight Sciences, which is part of the Boeing company, is in 6 buildings at our airport, which is huge. Lockheed Martin's in Clarksburg, and then the smaller companies. I just had lunch yesterday at North Star that just added a 40,000 square foot, one of 4 facilities, maybe 5 huge facilities that they're in right now.
That's amazing.
With about 100 employees. And they're one of our small companies that's pretty doggone new. They've just been here a couple of years, and they are going gangbusters.
Yeah, because it's that's that ripple effect, right? You just have to start, and if you just keep after it and keep after it, then it's they like attracts like. So then they see that it's not just one company in an industry. It's, well, wait a second, this is a whole collection of companies, and you are building an entire industry in a location. And I mean, not the purpose of this conversation, but what also is cool about it is that there's more commercial investment going in, because I got to tell you, as someone that lives near that airport, it is a lot more convenient to fly out of Clarksburg, West Virginia, than to drive to Pittsburgh to hop on an airplane. And there are more and more flights being added, which is great
Absolutely.
because, again, people don't realize you can get to Chicago easily. You can get to Washington, D.C., in which you can get to anywhere in the world, from Washington, D.C. Charlotte, that's another massive airport that you can get to all these different places. And of course, you have your, vacation spots, which I think is really cool too, like your Orlando and Myrtle Beach and all of that.
Yes.
But that in and of itself, there's been a lot of growth on that side as well. And that's exciting too, because if you talk about trying to bring more business in, regardless of industry for a moment, you're trying to make it just West Virginia more accessible by flight, which is great.
Exactly. And when you think about companies, you obviously are someone that came to West Virginia and fell in love with it, and that's what we love. But some people want to come home, and knowing that you have more flights to come home is important.
Yeah.
Knowing that when industry can fly in and out of West Virginia and bring, corporate leaders in for corporate meetings, that is a big deal. So as we also had to do at our airport, we had to, quote unquote, move mountains. There is not a lot of flat land in West Virginia.
Move mountains.
And so as we have looked at what our total square footage is under roof and our $1 billion economic impact, when we moved Earth for this beautiful brand new terminal that's growing, we have a new Aerotech park that is going to enable additional investment, more growth in aviation and aerospace, which when you think about all of our traditional sectors, there is still chemical industry here, but it's not what it used to be. There is absolutely still extractive industry sector here, but I can guarantee you that every parent I've ever met does not want that to be the only menu of choices for their child. They want things added to the menu. And to say that no matter really what you want to do in aviation and aerospace, to look at a parent and say, if you want them to design the plane, you've got WVU.
Yeah.
If you want them to fly the plane, you have now pilot programs that are opening. So you have Fairmont's pilot program that was the flagship, and now you have Marshall, and the leader at Marshall, Brad Smith, is just doing such great things in West Virginia. So there was just an announcement yesterday for a new partnership with West Liberty and Marshall University in the Northern Panhandle. And so I sent that team, I was like, this is so exciting. And they sent me back an email. It's so great to have friends like you, because for me, if I want to save West Virginia and I want West Virginia, my wild wonderful, to be the wild wonderful that I want it to be, I want kids all over the state to have every opportunity. And aviation and aerospace. And you don't have to have aviation and aerospace just because there's an airport or a runway.
No.
As I was having dinner last night, it was a business dinner, we were talking about the parts on an airplane. A smaller aircraft can have up to 3 million parts. A larger airplane can have up to 6 million. So if we're doing maintenance, repair, and overhaul, that's our big $1 billion economic impact at the airport. There are plenty of parts on an airplane that for places in West Virginia that want to be a part of this industry sector, to be a part of the supply chain, to be a part of the manufacturing, to be a piece of the puzzle, whether you have an airport or a runway or not, and to really tell our kids that the training is close to you, our K-12 system supports it. We really have a cohesive, foundational support system that I would predict that this industry sector is not going anywhere ever.
No, I mean, I can't imagine. And again, I mean, we talk about the shortages, and especially if you think about even from a pilot perspective, I mean, you age out. I mean, you cannot, at some point, you have to retire. And so there's always going to be a need. It's not like people can just do this job forever. And so, and we all know just demographically that, we're losing more boomers from the workforce than we're able to replace with the other generations. And so that's, part of the issue. But you're right. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, birthplace of aviation.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I may add, I thought, why have we not talked about that? But GM was a big, everyone thinks of Detroit when they think of GM, but honestly, Dayton, Ohio had quite a presence for GM as well, but not just they had an assembly line there, manufacturing facility, but not just car manufacturing that was going on. There were seatbelt manufacturers there, and there were all those little parts manufacturers. So you do build this entire ecosystem around the industry, and it's not just the one thing, it's all the pieces and parts that support that as well.
And with the state of West Virginia having this as a target industry, and you go to a few of the targeted trade shows, and you have aerospace companies that, you walk by states and you say, why states are there to look at those companies and say, we want your investment. And everyone always wants to stop by the West Virginia booth and tell you how it's the most beautiful state. And they grew up either with an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or someone taking them camping there. They want to tell you some wonderful outdoor story. And then they are drawn in by the fact that there's this amazing aerospace industry sector that I do think 10, 15 years ago might have been more of a secret, but I really feel like we're getting the word out. And one of the big telltale signs is the community college that I obviously work closely with, Pierpont, because it's at the airport. We're a true cluster. And when you think about industry, when you've got not only the land with existing industry, like-minded, and you've got the training facilities for that like-minded industry, and then you've got future land to continue to grow that industry. So, and Fairmont's there training pilots, Pierpont's there training the mechanics. We used to have a hard time, so we were being very reactive, getting kids enrolled into Pierpont to fulfill the training needs. And because it is an FAA certified program, the Federal Aviation Administration tells you what your enrollments can be. So Pierpont recently had their enrollments a couple of years ago upped from 100 to 130. They had to bring in, the person from the FAA to look at your classroom size, the amount of instructors that you have. And so we're at capacity with 130. So besides our new terminal, Fairmont and Pierpont are right now sharing a facility. The Pierpont program is continuing to grow. The Fairmont pilot program is continuing to grow. And Fairmont is the landlord to the building. So as Pierpont has now been awarded from the legislature this ability to build a new facility, Fairmont will take over those buildings and be able to grow their pilot program. And then Pierpont will be over by the new terminal. And this facility isn't just an opportunity. When you have maintenance, repair, and overhaul, it is the center nucleus of everything that we have behind our $1 billion economic impact. So none of these companies could do what they do without Pierpont. And you talking about these retirements, it's amazing the brain drain that we're having with these mechanics that know everything. And they're now multi-generational. So I think Dr. Gilbert said he gave a scholarship to a kid he's given a scholarship to one of the parents.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool.
We now, and it lets you kind of know how great this industry sector is, that parents want their kids to go to work in it. Kids want to go to work in it. And it's a career. If you get a job in the aviation industry, it's a job that you've got your life. You can buy a house and go on vacation. These are good paying jobs. Have health insurance and have, there are opportunities with some of the facilities with tuition reimbursement. So and this FAA certification, when you test out, it follows you for life. So if you become a Part 147 mechanic, you're a mechanic and you can go be a mechanic anywhere in the world. That's your license. You own it. But don't leave. Thank you, Laura, but don't leave. Don't leave.
But don't leave. Yeah.
I love that.
If you're on vacation and you want to help out.
Don't leave. But we also need, these statistics we're talking about pilot. If you look at the amount of women pilots and the amount, they're less than 5% of every mechanic on the planet is a woman.
Yes.
It is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And so one of the instructors at Pierpont is just absolutely such a shero to me. And in a way, I heard her talking to a group of young girls. She said, you're always going to be like kind of singled out at your facility, look, we do have a woman mechanic. And I realized I can't wait till we're past that, because I don't think some people want to be singled out. They just want to be a mechanic, and they just want to be a pilot, and they don't, but
they don't want to be made to feel different.
I'm thankful for what you mentioned is you've got to see it to believe it. And for those girls that at least have one instructor that looks like them, it's a saving grace. And I'll give a great example on how this whole see it. I have not been a sports person my whole life. I grew up taking ballet. I've never missed a WVU football game. I've never watched a WVU football game. I've had a ball in the blue lot. I've cheered when other people have cheered.
I've never missed a WVU football game. I've never watched
I just haven't cared. It doesn't, my mom can tell you every player. She can tell you every one of the, I didn't care. When the whole women's basketball thing, I'm not even kidding you, it transformed and I'm not young. The fact that it took this year of my life to see women's basketball in a way that I was taping every game.
Yes.
It meant more to me than anything, and it showed me how important this is, that you have to see people that look like it changed my life.
I
am now a basketball fan.
Good. Wow. And I mean, we have to put in a plug for West Virginia Lady Mountaineers, because they are really good. So they're fun, and they're fun to watch too.
This is opening my eyes. My very dear friend is the WVU rifle coach. The amount of women on the rifle team.
Yes.
So
Olympians. We've had Olympians.
The rifle coach is an Olympian. So I absolutely, you are. But it has opened my eyes, and it's made me realize how important these exposures are. You've got to tell your stories. These girls have got to be in a place where someone's talking to them on their level, and they feel comfortable asking questions and really saying, I can do this.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and I know you do so much leadership training, that I heard the lady that used to be the GM at Toyota speak a couple of years ago. Whoa. She is not the person that's the GM there now. And she said, when I have a supervisory position open, I will have men come apply for it all day long, whether they're qualified or not. I will tell them what skill sets they need and what they need to work on, and send them packing, and they will happily go, those that are interested. She said women feel like, and I'd never thought about this, they have to have everything in the job.
Yes.
And I realized that's something I need to really, because I never had thought about that. I need to say that if you have never turned a wrench in your life, if you've never done, all of this can be learned.
Yes.
You don't have to.
Do you like working with your hands? Do you think airplanes are cool? Do you like taking things apart and putting them back together? I mean, to see an MRO, it is cool. I mean, they are ripping these. It's not like we're putting a plane through a car wash. I mean, they are
taking the seats out.
Tearing the seats out. Like you are gutting an airplane and then putting it back together. It is cool.
Unbelievable. I walked through the whole facility yesterday, and it's just no matter. And I was asking questions, and the gentleman walking me through said, haven't you been here? I said, yes, but it's so overwhelming. And there's no matter what, you can't believe what's happening in here.
It is really, really cool. And and it's amazing to me, just again, like what's possible, what's out there. I do fly a lot. And so I always, you know how like you're boarding the airplane and you're always just like standing there very awkwardly looking around, because it's like takes people forever to, sit down. So I always look in the cockpit because I'm just like kind of curious. But I always look to see what's the pilot situation, what we got going on today, and usually it's, male pilots, but every once in a while I'll see a female pilot. But I was on a flight recently that was both female pilots, and I was like, right on, that is awesome. But I mean, it's only ever happened one time, and I've flown hundreds of times, so we have some work to do. But yeah, to your point, I mean, again, that is a career field that never would have crossed my mind. And to be able to say, even if you haven't done it before, and I will tell you, and I could go on a real big soapbox about pay equity, but you brought up something that is really important, because having an HR background and understanding compensation, there's obviously so much out there about women not being paid the same amount of money as men. And I can assure you that at least the circles that I've been in, that has never been a conscious decision on someone's part where it's like, well, when someone's trying to figure out what to pay a woman in a job, I've never been in a conversation where someone's like, let's, well, what does Bruce make? All right, let's pay Sally, 50% less or whatever. What's happening, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, by the way, and sometimes it might be a subconscious thing, but I think the bigger issue is what you just referred to of not applying for a job in the first place and thinking I'm not qualified for this. I just had a friend who I was like, hey, you need to go apply for this job. Her first answer, I'm not qualified for that. I was like, stop it right now. Don't say that. I know what I've worked with you. I know what you're capable of doing. You are 100% qualified for that job. But it was her, and she knows this research too. So it's funny. She still was like, no, I'm not qualified for that job. So I honestly think part of the bigger issue is actually that it's not that there's a bunch of people sitting in a room consciously deciding that they don't want to pay women as much as men make. I think a lot of it has to do with more of just women not even putting themselves out there and applying for those jobs.
And,
I can't be on an advisory board, or I can't do these things.
But having a mentor to say, yes, you can. And I think that is a big piece of what taking someone that wouldn't even think of applying, they are a perfectionist, having someone that hand picks you and says, I am going to champion you and I'm going to make sure. And that is imperative. And to me, that's another sign of culture. If you have leaders that aren't looking at you and saying, you don't have to be a trailblazer. You be you, but I'm going to encourage you to apply and I'm going to tell you you can do it. Because I do think that's therein lies that if you don't have someone that, and because you're a leadership trainer, it's not mentor. There's another great word for it. Sponsor. To have a sponsor. That was mentioned in one of the podcasts.
It's huge.
It's huge. And to have a sponsor, I really feel like that levels the playing field for women that and other people that don't want to be trailblazers. And it's hard for them to get out of their comfort zone, even if they are going to be so boss at this position and be so good at it. And that's really, really.
And you sometimes just need someone that taps you on the shoulder and says, I see this in you. You can do this. And if you don't feel comfortable, I'll be here to help you get comfortable. What is it that you need? Do you need more training? Do you need to work with me? Whatever it is, but you can get there. Now, I am curious because you are a boss and I am just loving this conversation. I'm so curious. And I do think it's cool that you get to use your educator background, by the way, because I can see the linkage, which was really cool. But what keeps you motivated to beat that drum every day? Because you are all in. You got the jewelry and everything. You are all in. But what keeps you all in? Because you've been doing this for a while and I could see you being like, okay, I'm tired of this. This is a lot of work.
The way I say it in my head, and I don't know if there's a formal, I have a healthy fear of authority. So even though I go into an office by myself and I have a small board, I don't ever assume anything. I just, I don't know if in you seeing as many people roll through the workforce, and there's a lot of talk now about just, frustrations with people showing up for work and doing their job. I just have I have a work ethic and I just have a sense of I'm really hard on me and that's just natural. And so I guess if you know if you're cut out to either be an entrepreneur or you're cut out to do something. And because it's not like I'm making a widget and I'm going in the office and I'm doing, there is no same thing because I may get a call that this company's investing, this company's laying off, this company has this. Nothing is ever the same in economic development, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's fun.
But I think it's just truly my own driven passion. And I think you have to, I love West Virginia.
Yes.
She's sometimes very hard to love. There's a lot of things about the state that frustrate
a
me.
great underdog story.
Yeah,
I feel.
it drive me crazy, but I am very thankful and passionate and proud of aviation.
Yeah.
And I do think being appointed to this Women in Aviation Advisory Board, and it's funny how when I look at like the flow of how we used to just be scrambling to get people enrolled in the training programs, and I feel like as I'm getting older and board members, pardon me, I can concentrate on like saying if it's right now, we really do have a pilot shortage and mechanic shortage, and I want more women in these roles. And I was appointed to the Women in Aviation Advisory Board, and we have this report, and we now have opportunities. I want to showcase to all West Virginians and to all children, but in the moments that I can champion to say, this is how we really address the fact that we have shortages in these. I feel like I've earned that moment to say I really love focusing on this, and somehow weaving that into every conversation, that we've got to make sure that women and girls really feel welcome walking into the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And just know that there are so many more options than they even probably think are possible for them. Not just the ones that you most commonly hear about for women. It's funny. I come from a family of educators. I'm actually the only female that's not an educator. Although
I'm the only one that got out.
Yeah, I kind of am in a sense but I just teach adults. So not elementary school students. And that's probably a blessing because I love kids, but I don't think I have the patience for that. But my mom said that when she was growing up, there were really only two options. It was you could be a nurse or you could be a teacher. And she said, and her mom was a nurse, and she said, we will pay for any job, or we'll pay for you to go to college for any profession except nursing, because at the time, that was the lowest paying profession for women. And so my mom goes, so I went into the second lowest paying profession and I became a teacher. And so did her sister. But, and so when my sister went off to school, she majored in elementary education, because this is what we saw. And my dad's an engineer and my brother went into engineering school. Amazing? And so I had a teacher, a female teacher, in high school that taught an intro to business class. And I just fell in love with business. And my mom, I think, was devastated when I told her, no, I'm not majoring in education. I'm majoring in business. And it's really cool. I have a whole bunch of nieces and they are incredible. And they're all very different from each other. And two of them are graduating high school. Like literally one of my nieces, today is her last day of high school. But two of them are graduating high school right now. And one of them got into a physics program. She's doing physics. I didn't even take physics in high school. I was like,
STEM girl.
Physics. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And again, like that, I also believe in following your strengths. And unfortunately, science just wasn't my strength. But I was thrilled that she was accepted, I think, into 2 physics programs actually. But it was just really exciting to see. And also to see the different, I have another niece that's doing equine management, super cool. Wow. Yeah. And then one that's going into healthcare. I mean, it's just like, it's cool to see the different opportunities and they're following their passion, they're following what they're good at, but they also have a lot more that's available to them. And so I think, again, just recognizing and reminding everyone out there, but especially women, hey, this is a whole industry that's available to you and a whole bunch of different careers within an industry.
I mean, I met Liz Vitullo at a great dinner just because WVU just wanted to meet with all of the industry at our airport and just say, what do you need? What can we do? And so it was just such a great team. And that's how I met Liz. And it has been such how neat to have someone like that that is now.
She's amazing.
Oh, I know. And I so enjoyed watching her podcast. But I mean, just
she's
the relationships that we've really fine tuned by just being on each other's radar and knowing that we're all here for each other. And boy, when you have a Girls in Aviation Day and you ask those departments from WVU to come down and do something fun with drones, they are bringing it on, and they are bringing the fun and really exposing kids to cool stuff. And I'm so thankful. And we all just are blowing up each other's social media and sharing things and just making sure that no matter what. And because kids have traveled to come to some of these events, we've got a couple social media pages so that if there is a fly-in or the Civil Air Patrol, as you mentioned earlier, does take kids up in airplanes, that I always say to everybody, please let me know everything going on, no matter where it is, because I feel like if a parent has a kid that has fallen in love with this industry, they will drive that kid a couple of hours to do something on a Saturday.
Trains. I mean, my son was a kid. He went through his Thomas the Train. And think about all the people, I didn't take him, but there's a bunch of people that go to Maryland, I think, for some Thomas the Train, experience, or ride the Polar Express. We did do that, the Polar Express. But like you want to
This is now making people do more things at their airports that then you have more people come, which makes you do it again. And so there is just, I just feel like there is more energy. You've seen this in West Virginia. Even though this was a target industry of the West Virginia Development Office a long time ago. The Mid Atlantic Aerospace Complex was started kind of when the High Tech Foundation was started, when Senator Byrd said, we have got to have more than coal on the menu. And I think people were like, what? And so when I think some of the companies would come in and say, Senator Byrd, this is XYZ company. We would like to have something in this defense contract. And he would say, I think you need to look at doing a little something in West Virginia. And I really think that's one of the ways that those investments just kept not being left off the radar. And so as we were all kind of doing our thing over the years, and thankfully, as Senator Byrd was investing in this aerospace industry, he said, we've got to have a school because that we're going to have turnover and retirements, and we've got to have
there was a lot of
this. Oh my God. So when Pierpont's Part 147 program was started, it was solely knowing that's the only way you can have a foundational industry. And so for many years, when there wasn't enough training, but it was a target industry, there's no way that you had the sustainability to have the workforce that was needed. And now that we've really, to me, got the educational component on fire more than it's ever been before, there is nothing that we can't do. And so really, and I think when you look at even what happened with broadband, and the broadband maps were bad, and no matter what, and you're watching commercials saying that you've got coverage in West Virginia when you and I driving, we could probably tell everybody every drop on Interstate 79. I can tell you every place it's going to drop. I know that as this amazing team started talking about advanced air mobility, that if some people like old dogs that need to learn new tricks say, okay, aviation is airports and runways and maintenance, repair, and overhaul. You have got to keep redefining aviation and aerospace as to whatever it is in the future of it's going to be. And I don't ever want West Virginia to be left out of that. So there's a great team that's advancing advanced air mobility, and I'm just so championing them. So even though I'm very caught in the maintenance, repair, and overhaul, and that's what I champion every day, I want kids that love that and love, uncrewed systems and drones to know that whatever it is you want to be, West Virginia is going to make sure that we're keeping up with the modern definitions, and we want all those opportunities. There's going to be a big advanced air mobility curriculum rolling out in Mingo County, West Virginia, and I can't tell you how dynamic that team is. And I'm just, and I love every bit of them. And so just anything happening in aviation and aerospace, we're just all sharing and championing now.
And it's so cool because, well, the other piece of this too is there is a significant investment in the tech industry as well. And there's a lot of really cool things going on in the tech industry. And so that'll feed, Yeah. And I heard a saying one time, I mean, if you lift one group, you lift all, right? So if
Isn't it the
if you can
best?
get a lift and then the tech industry gets a lift. There's other industries here. Natural resources, a huge industry for West Virginia as well. They benefit by additional business investment coming in because that's a customer, a commercial customer for them. And then the trickle down effect. All businesses get impacted by that. If you're a local bank, you get the benefit of more people coming in. If you're running a grocery store, a restaurant, that is economic impact. It's not just solely focusing on one business or how many jobs. It's the ripple effect of those jobs of where
direct
that
and
money,
indirect.
exactly. Yeah, because then it's like, well, wait a second. Then we start doing festivals or whatever, and we're bringing people in, and the tourism changes. And you look at the Hatfield McCoy and all the stuff that was done there.
The amount of out-of-staters that come to use that.
Yes.
And the Ascend program.
Looking
at bringing, especially
oh my gosh,
talking
yes.
about the tech industry, and just even how much of the tech industry is even doing software and development on aviation, aerospace, space.
Yeah.
So there are indirect and direct relationships, and Jimmy Stepp is on my board and is
and he's
always
amazing.
championing how important the fact that we're right beside of each other, and we've got all these opportunities.
You can help each other. This is not, even though you're in different industries, they're not completely separate from one another. They all relate. Like, I love how you did that, because they all connect, they all relate. And again, if you can start getting lift in a certain area, there's gonna be an overflow.
No pun intended.
I know, I thought about that.
That was good. That was good.
I did that on purpose.
That's right.
All right. I didn't even ask you yet what your definition of leadership is, because I'm just so engrossed in this conversation. But we've kind of touched on your role as a leader and the impact and influence you have. But what is a leader to you? I mean, you're in and out of organizations all day long. I know you've been exposed to a lot of really good and probably not so good leadership. So I'd just love to hear any perspective you have to share on either how you define leadership or what you think makes a great leader, however you want to say it.
This is the funniest pun, and my little sister, who is like my person, and I talk to my mom and my sister every day. My sister said, Tracy, you are a cheerleader for the state of West Virginia.
Yes.
And I am like, that is so corny. And I am
it took me a while. I'm a little slow on the uptake, but I got it.
am a cheerleader and champion for.
Aww.
So I think being authentic. So if you know that your strength is something and you are an authentic leader that believes in other people, and you're not afraid to let other people shine, which is the most important thing to me. And I think surrounding yourself with people, and I saw somebody else say it on your podcast, that are people that are smarter than you. I'm not afraid to ask questions. You asked, I am not an expert in the aviation and aerospace industry, but by God, I can champion it all day long.
Whoa.
Have I learned a lot?
I was going to say, I bet you are now.
Have I learned a lot? Yes, but I have a core person at every single one of these industries that they know I can call. And I think they love it that I'm out there beating the drum of the sector, and I don't need to know how to fix the airplane. And they love it that I call and ask them the tough questions. I don't act like I know it all. That to me is the definition, is I need my team. You talked about the $1 billion economic impact the second we sat down. That was done with a huge team that I'm just a very small piece of. And I'm so thankful that that team is so motivated and shows up every day. And we talk about this every day. And it's so funny how when you meet weekly for 7 years, how amazing some of those meetings are, and how absolutely trying some of those meetings are, how boring some of those meetings are. But it has taken goals that I can tell you we've had since the 1990s, like moving the dirt to create the new terminal. But when you have a team of people come together and you know who has got the strength to work on the federal grants, you know who can bring the team together, you know who's good at figuring out what the infrastructure needs are and how we're going to look at the big site plan and say, here's where everybody needs to be. Everyone's got their role in that. and then everybody feels valued.
Yes.
Everybody feels important showing up.
Yeah.
That to me is what I really love, is leaders that really count on and depend on their team.
Yep.
And I love being a cheerleader
For
wild, wonderful West Virginia.
Well, you do such an amazing job. I mean, I just you can feel your passion. I hope that
Who shows up? Who shows up is like
I'm
a
loving
cool nerd.
this.
I call myself a cool nerd. It's self-proclaimed.
Cool
I may
nerd.
be an uncool nerd, but I say I'm a
You're
cool
cool
nerd
to
because
me.
I feel like because I love what I do. This aviation rock star, I have, if I'm going to speak to kids, you've got to show up in something.
There's so many cool lessons from this conversation that I think about. First of all, I mean, the passion is so important. And I think regardless of what field, whether you go into aviation or not, but whatever field you go into, just be passionate, and you can do what you love. And it's important because I think one of my main takeaways from our conversation today has just been the amount of time and patience and energy that you've had to put into this for years and years and years. It's not something that happened overnight. And that passion is what will continue to drive you when you're not feeling it or you're not making as much progress as you want. But I think sometimes it's easy for any of us, but especially I think younger people, to get frustrated if something doesn't happen quickly enough. I mean, for example, I can go 2 years of poorly eating, and then if I eat healthy for one day, I get mad that the scale doesn't go down by 20 pounds.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it takes time. It didn't take one day to gain those pounds, and it's not going to take one day to get them off. And so I think when we live in a culture of instant feedback, instant gratification, it can be hard to know that it does take time. It does take patience, repetition. But think about what you've learned along the way, and then the importance of relationships, because you've really highlighted, I think, the importance of caring about other people and developing really strong relationships with other people, and the power of that when you do it.
I mean, all that we've grown has basically been our existing industry that continues to invest and reinvest and reinvest.
Yeah.
And so, yes, does some people get really excited to say new industries coming to West Virginia? Because that's so important.
Yeah.
But what a testimonial when the people that are here say, I think it's pretty good here and we're going to keep investing here. That to me speaks volumes.
I agree.
About how important it is. And the thing I like about West Virginia is you, especially for some of these companies that have facilities all over the world, you're a big fish in a small pond. Mm-hmm. And if you've got some corny, nerdy champion like me, I'm going to be, blabbing about you all the time. So, I mean, it's an opportunity to just get on the radar and shine.
Yeah. I love it. I'm ending it right there. I love it. You are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on this show and doing this. You've just been so delightful. I feel like I could have done this for hours.
Exciting. And I was nervous, and this is just I feel this is too important, and it is. You are very good at not making this difficult.
Well,
so
thank
you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Will you do a lightning round? Your face.
Dun,
the hardest question that I've asked you. Will you do the lightning round?
We're going to do the lightning round.
We need like a lightning bolt type thing. All right. 1 minute to answer as many open-ended questions as you can. And the lightning round starts now. What season best fits your personality?
God, I love them all. And we camp, we cross-country ski, we hike. That's why I love West Virginia. I'm a 4-season girl. That's why I'm here.
All seasons. Okay. What's your most used emoji in text?
I would say the heart and the peace sign.
Okay. I thought you were going to say airplane.
Honestly, it worked. I should have.
You sent it in an email to me. So what book, song, movie, or podcast has had the greatest impact on your life?
I absolutely. Song, Bob Marley, reggae. I'm a reggae girl.
I love it.
Book is any book that my mom or my sister recommend to me, but I love Demon Copperhead. I don't know if you've by Barbara Kingsolver. Wow. It's very Appalachian. It's so good.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. What did you want to be when you grow up as a kid?
I wanted to work for MTV. I wanted to be one of the VJs on MTV. I wanted to be the person that scouted the location, and I feel like I am doing that. I feel like in some crazy, corny way, economic development, even though it's not with music and MTV, I am in the most nerdiest way kind of living out my dream of taking a facility like aviation and having people invest in it, because I wanted to be the person going to the city and setting up the show.
Awesome. Then you totally have an MTV look about you. I love this. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. That was great. Minute went up. It goes fast. The minute goes fast, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you again so much for doing this.
So we're done?
I'm going to close it out right here. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Until next time, shine bright, everyone.